Welcome to the DCU Business School webinar series. Today we are talking a little bit about building and leveraging social capital virtually. And this topic is one that's close to my heart. My name is Brian Marrinan. I'm the managing partner of Journey Partners. We're an organization that drives innovation through people. So we focus on how you use social capital to drive innovation within organizations. Now, the topic of this session is one that is really important for a few different reasons. Lots of organizations know about the physical capital that they have available to them, the land, the machinery, all those kind of items. They're also very aware of the financial capital that are available to them, how much they have in terms of cash on the balance sheet, loans, all that side of things. We're also quite aware of the human capital that we bring to a situation. So our skills and knowledge, that of our workforce, and how we organize that is really important. But what gets less attention often is social capital. And social capital is those elements that are beyond the previously mentioned capital categories. So we're looking at how our networks engage to create value for our organization and for our people, and therefore our customers. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit today about social capital, why it's important, and how you can start to apply it among certain projects with particular customers, and then a few tips on how we're going to do that virtually over the next period of time when we're in the current situation. So to kick off, why is social capital important? Well, extensive research has been performed on this, and we have understood that there are multiple different benefits of managing social capital actively. One of the first ones is it builds market knowledge. If you are out and engaging with people, if you are talking to people around different topics, then you're going to start to understand how your market is performing, where the potential opportunities might lie. Are there potential threats coming your way that you may need to be aware of? So that whole market knowledge piece and commercial awareness piece amongst your staff certainly builds through social capital. We also have the opportunity to build alliances and partnerships. We can see through what's happening across the COVID-19 pandemic, how many people are coming together to work on different applications. People who would be seen to be competitors in many cases, people like Google and Apple, are coming together now in new ways to create more value for their customers and address market need. And by actually being active out there, we have an opportunity to go build new alliances that could benefit our customers in new ways and add value to our organization as part of that. We are looking at a situation where we can accelerate innovation. We know that innovation comes from diversity of thought, and the only way you get diversity of thought is by engaging with different people. By doing that, by enhancing your social capital and engaging across networks, you actually get new ways of thinking, new ways of bringing skill sets into what you're discussing, and therefore creating new products and services off the back of that, which again create value for your company. It gives you access to new customers. If you're actively engaging and approaching new people, you can find that there are ways of developing your pipeline of customers in a new way. It's not just a sales process, it's actually engaging in new ways of developing that customer pipeline. And it's not just external. You also have internal benefits for why social capital is important. Especially in a time like now, if you're building strong relationships with your staff through virtual means, then it gives them that support that they need in this time. I think we're in a situation where people need that support. They're probably in a situation that they've never been in their lives before. So even to encourage people to share and engage in new ways is beneficial to the organization right now. And finally, it embodies trust. So if you're building social capital correctly and doing that in an organized manner, you're actually building the trust of your employees, of your wider stakeholder group, and potentially even customers at this time, so that you're in a better position through the crisis and after the crisis. Now, there's a reason why we need to look at this strategically. Robert Dunbar, who is a British psychologist, has done extensive research into networks and how we build them. And he's discovered that typically we have 5 kind of close friends or family that we're connected to. That builds out into a wider, I suppose, grouping of about 15 people or so. Then we move into a clan of closer friends or slightly wider friends and family of about 50 or so. And then we move into what's called our tribe of about 150 people. And what he has discovered is once we go beyond roughly that 150 number, we find it very difficult to maintain the headspace for building relationships with those people. Making connections is really easy, but making relationships is really hard. And we need to be very conscious of who those 150 people are in our network to ensure that we're building the relationships with the right type of people and the right people for what we're looking to achieve, both in and of ourselves personally, but also in an organizational context. So how can you actually go about managing a situation like this and building your social capital? So one tool that I find really useful is a Mandalas Grid, which looks at the power and interest axes for example, a project that you're engaged in at the moment. Now, this could be a project to find new customers. It could be a project that you're actually engaged in developing at the moment. And the tool is really useful for mapping out the stakeholders that might be engaged in that wider project process. It's a way of actually deliberately looking at this process and being deliberate about who you're engaging. So what you do is you just simply map out your stakeholders according to where they lie in the grids. You might find that people with lower power within an organizational context or within a project delivery context will be lower down in the grid, and people with lower interest in what you're trying to achieve might be further to the left. Now, what we're looking at is where those grids lie and what kind of behaviors you should take with the individuals that are within them. So people who have low power to help you to achieve your goals and lower interest in what you're trying to achieve are people that we should simply monitor. We should be looking at them to see, has their power increased? Has their interest increased? Do we need to change our behaviors towards them? But if it doesn't, we just need to keep monitoring them. Now, the second grid that we might look at is the bottom right. And for those people who are highly interested but have lower power to help you to achieve what you're trying to achieve, you simply want to keep those people informed. You want to keep them satisfied in terms of that they're getting information about something that they're interested in, but you don't necessarily want to spend a huge amount of time engaging those people. Now, as we move up the power rankings to the top left, there are people here that might be high in power, but low in interest. And what you're looking to do is either keep them satisfied or actually move them across into the top right column if you feel it's important to your interests. So it might be that the CEO of the organization is really interested in, or is obviously really powerful in an organizational context, but has less interest in a project that you're working in. So you have to work out, is that actually strategically important to engage that person or not? If you're happy with them being in the top left, then you simply keep them satisfied with the situation. You keep them updated, you make sure that it isn't interfering with anything else that's going on for them, and that they're happy with how things are going. Now, the group that we keep most attention on is the manage closely group. And that is people with high power and high interest. And so you're looking at those groups to see who is in here and how do we actually manage that relationship in a very proactive manner. What we've discovered through relationship research, there's a gentleman who has done extensive amount of couple relationship research, and he's found that for every negative that you have in a situation, you must have, or in a relationship, you must have 3 positives. And therefore you should be managing this relationship as closely as possible to ensure that those positives are coming through in their experience of you and the project that you're engaged in. So hopefully that will give you a little context. This is something that not a lot of people pay attention to. They might consider who their stakeholders are in terms of a project, but they don't actually sit down to map those out and decide what kind of relationship they're going to have with those people. And I would suggest that that's something that's really beneficial to us in terms of building out that social capital, that trust with people. Now, I thought I'd give you, excuse me, a few other tips that might be useful to you in this situation. What we're looking at here is some of the items that might actually be useful from a social capital perspective. The first one, and most important, is setting the tone. I think it's really beneficial for us to see leadership as a role and not as a position. So whether you are in charge of a project or not, you should be taking the lead in actually making sure that you're building these relationships and making sure that the project is successful off the back of that. So firstly, set the tone. Secondly, organize yourself. The key thing around social capital is many people leave it to chance, and that's where people fall down. Whereas if you're actively mapping out who your stakeholders are, then you have a much better chance of actually keeping those people engaged and happy and maintaining those relationships so that you have a better chance of success. Third element is allocating priorities. Now, we cannot do this all on our own. Sometimes we have maybe interpersonal relationships that are stronger with some people than others. Sometimes a project is so big that there are multiple different stakeholders that need to be engaged. So make sure that the team is involved in this, that you're actually engaging in who should be managing what relationship and how you go about doing that, who's best positioned to actually manage it. The next up, especially in this virtual world, is decide what actually is the best way of connecting with people. I think a lot of people are having a little bit of Zoom overdose at the moment. I recognize I'm talking to you in that manner. However, there are other people that would actually just prefer a phone call or an email. So discover that, find out what the person's preferred method of communication is and use that. Now it might be multiple modes, that's perfectly fine too, but make sure that you're including that when you're actually managing your stakeholders. And the final piece of information I'll leave you with is right now in particular, seek to provide value first. If you're managing a relationship, you've got to be the one who's actually bringing the value to that relationship and actually helping that person over the course of their daily lives. If you're providing value first, you're seen as a stronger person and someone that they want to be connected with. And it makes it much easier for you to manage that relationship on an ongoing basis. So I hope those are a few tips that will help you to keep going through this crisis around how you manage your social capital. But I would hope that beyond this, you actually take some of these on board and think differently about how you're managing your projects. Now is the time to reach out. I wish you every success in reaching your goals and look forward to seeing you again for one of the other in our series of webinars. Thank you.